Check this out. This fitness trainer turned gym gear into a $500 million empire. But get this, in the process, she also managed to coin a new category that today we call activewear. So how did she do it? This story is crazy, so listen carefully. Back in 1989, activewear wasn't a thing. Nike, Adidas, and Reebok were all about sportswear. But Lorna Jane saw things very differently. She knew women needed gym gear that was not sport specific. So she designed her own and sold them at a fitness studio. They sold like crazy, but department stores refused to carry them. So in 1990, she and her husband Bill took a huge risk. They opened their very first store in Brisbane, Australia. Day one of sale covered the entire week's rent. They knew they were onto something really big. And by early 2000s, demand was exploding. But scaling was a nightmare. They needed cash and they needed it fast. So they made a massive sacrifice. They sold their dream home and bought a rundown factory for $465,000. They lived upstairs and they refurbished it from ground up. 2 years later, it was worth $4 million. So they used it as collateral and scaled even further. But then disaster struck. The 2008 financial crisis rocked the retail world. Most brands pulled back, but Lorna Jane did the opposite and went all in. They locked in prime retail locations at bargain prices, and this changed everything. By 2010, investors came knocking. A private equity firm bought 40% of the company with the goal to build a national footprint. By 2012, they had 120 stores in Australia and launched in the US. By 2013, they were opening one new store in California every 3 weeks. With revenue approaching $110 million, they had won 9.4% of the entire Australian market. Then in 2014, investment bankers pitched a $400 million IPO, and private buyers, including Under Armour and Foot Locker, offered a staggering $500 million. But guess what? Lorna and Bill said no. Instead, they doubled down on their brand. But then in 2020, the pandemic hit. Retail collapsed and stores were closing everywhere. Supply chains were breaking, but Lorna Jane, what did she do? She saw this as an opportunity. She seized the negative market sentiment and made the boldest move yet. She bought back the 40% stake from their investor for just $28 million, a fraction of what was offered years earlier. She called it the deal of the century. The Lorna Jane story proves that a true leader is able to see the bright light behind every shadow that a business journey presents.